This year marks the 350th anniversary of the passing of Krotoa, or Mother of the Nation. Now, Krotoa made history as the first Khoi woman to translator of Dutch and Khoi back in the 1660s. She was also the very first woman to be locked up at Robben Island. The Robben Island Museum, together with the Castle of Good Hope, hosted an event highlighting as well as celebrating her legacy with Women's Month in August just around the corner. For more on this story, let's cross now to SABC News Reporter.
We are crossing to you from the Nelson Mandela Gateway to Robben Island here at the waterfront, and we are visiting the gateway today to just witness this celebration of life, an event that has just taken place to mark 350 years since the passing of Krotoa, Mother of the Nation, one of the major figures in the Khoisan culture and in the Khoisan community. But joining us now to talk to us more about the program and the events to commemorate this special milestone for the Khoi and the San community, we are joined now by Khoisan activist and artist Sylvia Vollenhoven to talk to us more about today's proceedings. Well, good day to you, ma'am, and thank you so much for joining us.
Gangans.
Wonderful. So perhaps let's just talk about the significance today and what is being actually celebrated here around Krotoa's life.
Well, I think what is important is to recognize that many South Africans don't know who Krotoa is. And 350 years ago, when she lived and died at the tender age of only 31, she was a key figure at the Cape, a negotiator, a diplomat, somebody who brought peace when the first war broke out between the indigenous people and the colonials. And she was a translator who spoke many different languages. She grew up in the household of a colonial commander, however, whom everybody knows, Jan van Riebeeck, and very few people know Krotoa. So what we are celebrating here today is her legacy and her heritage, and to make people aware of these great indigenous figures, especially indigenous women, that we have in our history.
And this great legacy that she's left behind and her memories, just how do you think that can be used just to shape the vision and the perspectives of future generations?
I think a lot of people are aware that there is a huge revival amongst the First Nations people of South Africa who are sick and tired of being called colored and being branded as a people without any culture. And so the revival amongst the Khoi people and the San people, or Bushmen as most people prefer, is about looking back at our history, identifying the gaps and filling those gaps in various creative ways. Personally, I've written a play about Krotoa called Krotoa Eva van der Kaap, which was at Artscape now several times and which opened in the Netherlands. So even people overseas are recognizing the dynamic nature of our history and how neglected these figures are. And when you wipe out a people's language, when you wipe out their history, when you wipe out their stories, you reduce them to almost nothing, and you reduce them to accepting that they do not matter. And so bringing back the story of Krotoa in this powerful way, commemorating her and her story in this powerful way, is part of a Khoi and San First Nations revival, but it is part of us reasserting ourselves as a people who had language, who have rights, who had beautiful names that have been destroyed, who had a beautiful culture that we are busy reviving.
If we consider that the story of Krotoa has been underrepresented and perhaps even misrepresented over the centuries, just an event like this to commemorate and just mark that legacy that she leaves behind, just it's one step, but what more do you think can be done?
I think one of the speakers here today mentioned something very important. The play that I told you that I wrote, we bussed in hundreds of children. At one stage at the Woordfeest, we had 1,400 high school learners coming to see the play. These youngsters were in tears afterwards. They had never heard of Krotoa, and it was the first time that they had seen one of our own people celebrated in such a way. So one of the speakers earlier mentioned that These stories are not being taught in our schools. Our history books are still teaching people about Jan van Riebeeck and almost nothing about Krotoa. So apart from the artists like myself who are putting these stories out there, who are putting our people's stories back on the map, we also need the government and the education authorities to accept that something needs to be done so that our children is taught the true history so that they can stand up and be proud of who they are.
And then lastly, perhaps you could just give us a picture of the program that was conducted here today. We saw some of the activities outside with that Khoisan rituals. Just what's the significance of something like that and the program maybe that's been taking place so far today?
The program today has been a more formal combination of more formal speeches by leading people, academics, cultural people in the heritage sector, the leaders of the two partners that have come together to produce this program, the Robben Island Museum and the Castle of Good Hope. And at the same time, it has brought together traditional chiefs, traditional healers and leaders and great seers. Ons mense het groot sieners. And these seers have performed a traditional ceremony outside where the Robben Island ferry leaves from. Robben Island is where Krotoa died, and so it was a significant place for them to call upon her spirit, to call upon our ancestral spirits to be with us here today, because as Africans, we have lost touch with our rituals, and when we lose touch with our ancient cultures, traditions, and rituals, we lose touch with who we are.
Wonderful. Sylvia, thank you so much for speaking to us. Thank you for your time. All of the best. Well, of course, that was a Khoisan activist and artist, Sylvia Vollenhoven, who was just giving us a bit more insight and a bit more detail surrounding the legend of Krotoa, mother of the nation, one of the big figures for the Khoisan culture and the Khoisan community. Of course, commemorations are continuing here today to mark 350 years since Krotoa's passing.